Imagine waking up in the morning and brushing your teeth without even thinking about which toothpaste you picked up. You shower, wash your hair, clean your clothes, apply lotion, maybe grab a cup of tea, and step out for the day. It feels routine, almost invisible. But what if someone told you that nearly everything you just used came from a single company? Not just you, but almost half the world's population does the same thing every single day without realizing it. From toothpaste to soap, shampoo to detergent, skin cream to packaged food, the reach of this one company quietly surrounds daily human life. Whether someone lives in a busy city or a remote village, chances are extremely high that at least one product they touch today belongs to the same corporate family. That company is Hindustan Unilever Limited, often known simply as HUL, a name that sounds proudly Indian, familiar, almost domestic. Yet behind this familiar identity lies a far more complex, global, and controversial story that stretches back more than a century, crosses continents, survives wars, independence movements, government crackdowns, corporate wars, environmental scandals, and social backlash, and still emerges as one of the most powerful consumer goods empires the world has ever seen. Today, Hindustan Unilever operates in more than 190 countries, directly or indirectly through its parent organization, serving billions of consumers. Considering there are only 195 countries in the world, that footprint is nearly global dominance. The company's products are so deeply embedded in daily life that people often forget they are interacting with a multinational corporation at all. What started as a simple soap business eventually became a machine that understands consumer psychology, pricing sensitivity, supply chains, rural distribution, political negotiation, and brand loyalty better than almost any other company on earth. But how did a company that began by selling soap manage to rule bathrooms, kitchens, and households across the planet? Is Hindustan Unilever truly Indian, or is that identity carefully constructed? And what sacrifices, struggles, ethical compromises, and legal battles were hidden beneath this growth story? To understand this, we have to turn the clock back to the late 19th century, to a time when modern hygiene itself was still a luxury, not a habit. In the year 1885, in England, two brothers named William Hesketh Lever and James Darcy Lever started a small company called Lever Brothers. Their primary product was a soap called Sunlight. At that time, soap was not just a cleaning product. It was marketed as a symbol of health, hygiene, and social progress. The Industrial Revolution had created crowded cities, poor sanitation, and widespread disease, and Sunlight soap positioned itself as a solution not just for dirt, but for public health itself. This approach resonated deeply with consumers, and Sunlight soap quickly became popular not only in England, but also across neighboring European countries. Just 3 years later, in 1888, crates filled with Sunlight soap arrived at the port of Calcutta. This moment marked the quiet entry of Lever Brothers into India. Colonial India, with its massive population and growing urban centers, represented an enormous untapped market. Sunlight soap did not remain a foreign curiosity for long. Indian consumers, especially in urban areas, quickly adopted it, drawn by its promise of cleanliness and modern living. Encouraged by this success, Lever Brothers introduced another soap in India in 1895, this time a product that would go on to become legendary: Lifebuoy. Lifebuoy was positioned not just as a soap, but as protection against germs and disease, a powerful message in a country struggling with epidemics and poor sanitation. The response was overwhelming. Both Sunlight and Lifebuoy gained strong traction, and Lever Brothers began seeing India not as a side market, but as a core growth engine. However, rapid success created a new problem. Soap production at scale required enormous quantities of raw materials, especially palm oil, which was a critical ingredient. Securing palm oil in sufficient quantities was expensive, unstable, and logistically complex. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, two businessmen named Jurgens and van den Berg were running successful margarine businesses. Margarine, a plant-based fat, required palm oil as well. In India, this product would later become famous under the name dalda. During the 1920s, competition in the margarine industry intensified dramatically, squeezing margins and threatening long-term sustainability. In 1927, Jurgens and Vandenberg merged their companies to form Margarine Uni, pooling resources and stabilizing supply chains. 2 years later, in September 1929, Margarine Uni and Lever Brothers joined forces to create a new entity, Unilever. On the surface, soap and margarine seemed unrelated, but palm oil connected them at the core. By merging profits, logistics, and plantation investments, Unilever secured control over palm oil sources at scale. This decision would shape global consumer markets for decades. With stable raw material access, Unilever expanded aggressively across continents, entering new countries at a pace few companies could match. While India was still fighting for independence from British rule, British corporations were strengthening their economic grip. In 1931, Unilever formally established its first Indian manufacturing entity, called Hindustan Vanaspati Manufacturing Company. Its flagship product was dalda, a vegetable ghee positioned as an affordable alternative to traditional dairy ghee. Dalda became a massive success, especially among middle and lower-income households. Its popularity was so widespread that for decades, the word Vanaspati itself became synonymous with dalda in many Indian homes. But Unilever's path in India was anything but smooth. During the 1930s and 1940s, the Swadeshi movement gained strength under Mahatma Gandhi's leadership. Indians were encouraged to boycott British goods and support locally made products, even if they were of lower quality. This movement hit Unilever hard. Sales dropped sharply as Indian consumers consciously rejected foreign brands. To survive, Unilever adapted. Instead of relying on imports, it shifted toward local manufacturing. In May 1934, the company opened its first soap factory in Mumbai. This move reduced costs, created local employment, and weakened the emotional force of the boycott. Local production also allowed Unilever to price products more affordably, expanding its reach into mass markets. In 1935, Unilever established another Indian entity called United Traders Limited, which handled the import and export of commodities like metals, chemicals, and textiles. These three companies operated separately until 1956, when Hindustan Vanaspati Manufacturing Company, Lever Brothers India, and United Traders Limited were merged to form Hindustan Unilever Limited. This merger was not merely administrative. India had gained independence in 1947, and the new government was deeply suspicious of foreign ownership. Regulations were introduced to limit foreign control and increase Indian participation in management and ownership. To comply and survive, Unilever reduced its visible foreign footprint. Indian shareholders were given a 10% equity stake, and Prakash Tandon became the company's first Indian director. By 1955, around 65% of the company's managers were Indian nationals. These steps helped Hindustan Unilever project itself as an Indian company, a perception that persists even today. Yet legally and structurally, it remained a subsidiary of Unilever plc, a British multinational. India proved incredibly profitable. Competition was limited, population growth was explosive, and consumption habits were evolving rapidly. Hindustan Unilever capitalized on this opportunity by aggressively expanding its FMCG portfolio. In 1959, it launched surf detergent powder. In 1964, it introduced Anik ghee and Sunsilk shampoo. By 1966, it had entered the baby food segment. Each product was carefully localized, priced, and marketed to suit Indian sensibilities. Growth became relentless. Then came a severe shock. In 1973, the Indian government imposed price controls on essential commodities like soap and Vanaspati to fight inflation. These controls crushed profit margins across the industry. Even giants like Hindustan Unilever began bleeding money. To survive, Chairman T. Thomas launched a low-cost soap called Janata, aimed at mass affordability. Despite this effort, losses continued. T. Thomas later admitted that if price controls had lasted any longer, Hindustan Lever might have been forced to exit India entirely. Relief came when the government eventually lifted the controls, but trouble returned in another form. During the 1970s, India introduced policies requiring multinational companies to dilute foreign ownership below 51%. Companies like Coca-Cola and IBM chose to exit rather than comply. Hindustan Lever, deeply embedded in India, chose negotiation over retreat. The government agreed to let the company retain majority ownership under strict conditions. Hindustan Lever had to invest 60% of its turnover in activities beneficial to India and export at least 10% of its production. The company complied, and the deal reshaped its long-term strategy around local investment and exports. Between 1972 and 1986, Unilever acquired brands like Lipton, Brooke Bond, and Pond's, strengthening its food and personal care dominance. At the same time, it faced one of its fiercest challenges yet, the detergent wars. In the 1980s and 1990s, Procter & Gamble entered India with Ariel detergent. Surf and Ariel engaged in aggressive marketing battles, spending heavily on advertising. While they fought each other, a local brand called Nirma quietly captured the mass market with ultra-low pricing. Recognizing the threat, Hindustan Lever launched wheel detergent in 1985, priced affordably and marketed aggressively as skin-friendly. The strategy worked. Wheel became a blockbuster success and reclaimed lost ground. Economic liberalization in 1991 transformed India. Restrictions on foreign investment were lifted and competition intensified. Hindustan Lever responded by accelerating expansion. In 1993, it merged with Tata Oil Mills Company, famous for brands like Hammam. The merger was risky, as Tomco was loss-making and faced internal resistance, but it ultimately strengthened Hindustan Lever's manufacturing and distribution capabilities. That same year, it acquired Lakme from the Tata Group through a joint venture, which later became fully owned by Hindustan Lever. Despite success, controversy followed. In 2001, a mercury pollution scandal erupted at Hindustan Lever's thermometer factory in Kodaikanal, Tamil Nadu. Mercury waste had been improperly disposed of, contaminating soil, water, and air. Workers suffered neurological damage, kidney failure, and long-term health issues. Local communities protested, and the factory was shut down. In 2003, the company collected and exported 290 tons of mercury waste to the United States for recycling. Legal battles continued until 2016, when compensation was finally paid to affected workers' families. Even as the legal storm raged, business growth continued. By 2007, Brooke Bond and Surf crossed massive sales milestones. Wheel followed soon after. Rural markets became a new frontier, with small, affordable packs targeting villages. Hindustan Lever strengthened its grip across demographics. Then came another backlash, this time social rather than environmental. Fair and Lovely, India's most popular fairness cream, was accused of promoting colorism and reinforcing harmful stereotypes. Global movements against racial discrimination intensified criticism. In 2020, the brand was renamed Glow and Lovely, signaling a shift toward promoting healthy skin rather than fairness. That same year, Hindustan Unilever merged with GSK Consumer Healthcare, bringing brands like Horlicks and Boost into its portfolio. By financial year 2023-24, the company's turnover approached nearly 1 trillion rupees, and its market capitalization crossed several trillion rupees, placing it among the most valuable consumer companies in the world. From soap to social influence, from colonial roots to modern dominance, Hindustan Unilever's story is not just about products. It is about power, adaptation, controversy, and survival in a constantly changing world. What makes Hindustan Unilever truly fascinating is not just the scale it has achieved, but the way it learned to read India, almost like a living organism. By the late 2000s, Chul was no longer merely selling products. It was shaping habits, influencing aspirations, and in many ways defining what daily life looked like for millions of households. The company had reached a point where even economic slowdowns, political changes, or rising competition could not easily shake its foundation. This was because its strength was not concentrated in one product or one segment, but spread across dozens of categories, each feeding into the other like an ecosystem. Take rural India as an example. For decades, multinational companies struggled to penetrate villages because of poor infrastructure, low purchasing power, and limited awareness. Hindustan Unilever approached this challenge differently. Instead of forcing urban strategies onto rural consumers, it redesigned everything from packaging to pricing to distribution. Small sachets costing just a few rupees became the gateway product. A villager who could not afford a full bottle of shampoo could still buy a sachet of Sunsilk or Clinic Plus. Over time, these sachets did more than generate revenue. They built habit and trust. Once incomes improved, consumers naturally upgraded to larger packs of the same brand they already trusted. To support this, Cool built one of the most complex and extensive distribution networks in the country. Through initiatives like Shakti Amas, local women were trained and empowered to become micro-distributors, selling Chul products door-to-door in villages. This model did not just improve last-mile delivery, it created livelihoods and tied the company's growth directly to rural economic development. From a business perspective, it was brilliant. From a social perspective, it positioned HUL as a partner in progress rather than just a seller of goods. At the same time, the company was refining its understanding of Indian psychology. Advertising campaigns were carefully crafted to align with emotions, family values, and cultural norms. Lifebuoy did not just promise cleanliness, it promised protection for children. Surf did not just clean clothes, it celebrated stains as proof of learning and growth in children, turning dirt into a positive symbol. These narratives embedded brands into emotional memory, making switching to competitors psychologically harder, even when alternatives were cheaper. However, dominance attracts scrutiny. As Hull grew larger, questions about ethical responsibility became louder. The Kodaikanal Mercury case remained a stain on the company's reputation long after legal settlements were reached. Environmental activists, former workers, and global watchdogs continued to cite it as an example of how corporate negligence can devastate ecosystems and human lives. For Hull, this episode became a turning point. The company began investing heavily in sustainability initiatives, waste reduction, water stewardship, and responsible sourcing. While critics argue that these efforts are partly image-driven, there is no denying that HUL today publishes detailed sustainability reports and sets measurable environmental goals, something it did not do decades ago. Another area where the company faced pressure was gender representation and social messaging. The Fair and Lovely controversy forced HUL to confront the uncomfortable reality that its marketing had reinforced deep-seated biases. Renaming the product to Glow and Lovely was not just a branding exercise, it came with changes in advertising language, visuals, and messaging. While skeptics questioned whether a name change was enough, the episode highlighted how powerful consumer voices had become in the age of social media. For the first time, a product that had generated billions in revenue was forced to adapt, not because of falling sales, but because of shifting social values. Meanwhile, competition continued to intensify. Indian FMCG companies like Patanjali disrupted the market by leveraging nationalism, Ayurveda, and aggressive pricing. Patanjali's rise in the mid-2010s caught HUL off guard, particularly in categories like personal care and food. Sales growth slowed, and analysts began questioning whether HUL's era of unchecked dominance was ending. The company responded not with panic, but with recalibration. It sharpened pricing, improved rural reach, and introduced products that leaned into natural ingredients and wellness trends. Unlike companies that react emotionally to disruption, HUL treated Patanjali as a signal, not a threat, and adjusted its portfolio accordingly. This adaptability is rooted in Unilever's global philosophy. Across markets, Unilever invests heavily in consumer research, data analytics, and behavioral science. Decisions are rarely made on instinct alone. In India, this translated into region-specific strategies. A product formulation that worked in North India might be tweaked for the South. Fragrances, textures, even packaging colors were adjusted based on local preferences. This granular customization allowed HUL to feel local everywhere while remaining global at its core. Financially, the results spoke for themselves. Year after year, HUL delivered stable growth, strong margins, and reliable dividends, making it a favorite among investors. Its ability to weather inflation, supply chain disruptions, and currency fluctuations reinforced its image as a defensive stock, one that performs even when the broader economy struggles. By the early 2020s, HUL's market capitalization crossed multiple trillion rupees, placing it among the most valuable companies in India, not just in FMCG, but across all sectors. Yet, beneath this success lies an important truth. Hindustan Unilever's story is not a simple tale of good versus bad, or foreign versus Indian. It is a story of adaptation to power structures, social movements, and consumer consciousness. It benefited from colonial trade routes, survived nationalist boycotts, negotiated with post-independence governments, fought multinational rivals, learned from local competitors, stumbled into environmental disasters, and evolved under public pressure. Each phase left a mark on the company's DNA. For many Indians, HUL products are tied to childhood memories. The smell of Lux soap, the taste of Horlicks before school, the Lifebuoy bar hanging near a hand pump, the wheel detergent packet in a steel trunk. These are not just products, they are fragments of lived experience. That emotional embedment is perhaps HUL's greatest asset, more powerful than factories or balance sheets. At the same time, the question of identity remains. Despite its Indian name, leadership localization, and deep roots in the country, Hindustan Unilever is still majority owned by Unilever plc, headquartered in the United Kingdom. Strategic decisions ultimately align with global priorities. Profits flow upward, even as value is created locally. This dual identity allows HUL to enjoy the trust of Indian consumers while leveraging the resources of a global giant. It is a delicate balance, and one that few companies have managed as successfully. Looking ahead, the challenges are far from over. Consumer preferences are shifting towards sustainability, transparency, and health. Digital native brands are emerging rapidly, using social media and direct-to-consumer models to bypass traditional distribution. Regulatory scrutiny is increasing, and environmental concerns are becoming central to business viability. HUL's future dominance will depend not on how big it already is, but on how honestly and intelligently it adapts to these changes. What remains undeniable is this: a company that began with a bar of soap has managed to embed itself into the daily rhythm of billions of lives. It has shaped markets, influenced culture, and survived storms that destroyed many of its peers. Whether one views Hindustan Unilever as a corporate success story, a symbol of globalization, or a subject of ethical debate, its impact on modern consumer history is impossible to ignore. Every time someone squeezes toothpaste onto a brush or tears open a small sachet in a village, they are participating in a story that began more than a century ago and is still being written today.